All right, good brother. It's so good to have you on. Thank you for all the history you're making with Actively Black, breaking the internet. And you have managed to do that again, getting Ralph Lauren together. So I want to hear from you, from your perspective. They do have this Black creative director, Morehouse grad.
Yeah.
I always see you celebrating everything Black, but I want to hear from you why this rubbed you particularly wrong, this line they're launching.
Yeah, to be honest with you, it wasn't that the line rubbed me wrong. And I've actually been surprised at the feedback, because I said very similar things all the time, and the last time that they dropped a line. My message was really to our people that I want us to value us. I want us to value Black owned in the way that we value everybody else's stuff. You know what I mean? Shout out to the Black creative director over there at Ralph Lauren. Like I said, I commended them. I think it's a beautiful collection, and very well done. But there's something to be said about how we view ourselves and how we treat our Black-owned brands. And to me, what I feel like is part of an inferiority complex, where we value European designer and white designer in a way that we don't value ourselves. And with what I'm building with Actively Black, the tagline is "There's greatness in our DNA." And that's very intentional, because I want our people to understand that the centuries and centuries of oppression have subconsciously seeped into some of our minds, where we actually believe some of the lies we've been told, that we're less than, that we're not as smart as. And so sometimes we look to these things of what we buy and what we wear to validate ourselves, as if, being invited to a seat at the table makes us feel better about ourselves. And I'm just trying to say, let's stop being so happy about being invited to a seat at the table, and let's build our own table. You know what I mean? Like, we are the source, we are the sauce, we are the seasoning that everybody else takes, repackages, and then sells back to us. And so it really was nothing against Ralph Lauren or Polo or what they're doing. I'm not anti anybody. I'm just for us more. So I wanted to make sure I clarified that, because I got a lot of people coming at me sideways, and I'm like, yo, I didn't say anything bad about them. I didn't say anything against them. What I did present were facts. And the facts were that Ralph Lauren said himself, this is a quote by him, this is on their website, that he was unaware of these issues facing Black America until the events of 2020. And he actually sat down in a company meeting with
James Jeter.
Post George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and he sat down in a team meeting about the racial awakening. And James showed him a yearbook, of a Morehouse yearbook, and he was impressed with, the fashion that he saw there. And then he decided, hey, we need to revisit how we are expressing the American dream. My only thing with that is, bro, Ralph Lauren was started in 1966 or 67. How were you unaware of our contributions to fashion, to culture, to the world until 2020? So that makes me feel like there's a lack of authenticity behind the scenes of what's actually going on with this. When I look at the amount that they have committed to giving to HBCUs, it's $2 million to 12 different schools over 5 years. Do the math.
Yeah.
It comes out to $33,000 per school per year. Ralph Lauren does $7 billion in revenue every single year. What they giving back to these schools is really what y'all buying this apparel for. They're not actually sacrificing anything to give back to the community. That's all that I was saying. I don't have anything against the collection. It's beautifully done. I watched the video that accompanied it. I thought it was beautiful, and how it told the story of, Martha's Vineyard and Oak Bluffs and the history of that. I think that's commendable. I just think our people need to understand who we are and why we should aspire to us. These aspirational brands that sell this lifestyle and this image that is not us. I think we get caught up in chasing that. And so I'm not anti Ralph Lauren. I'm not anti anybody else. I'm just pro us.
Well, speaking
What's the
of
most
FUBU,
cogent argument?
Well,
What's the most cogent argument you've heard? I'm sorry, you said FUBU. Go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was just saying, speaking of FUBU as a mentality, Lanny, and I'm sorry, Andrew, I'm going to let you jump in,
No,
but I
please,
just had
go
a quick
ahead.
follow-up here, because I think one of the things that's really important is a lot of brands get our culture enough to package and to sell to us. We always are talked about in the frame of our collective buying power. We're never talked about in terms of our ownership. And the one stat that does come up when we talk about the dollar recycling in the Black community is that maybe that happens one time over. So what I hear you saying is like, I'm trying to shift us out of the mentality of supporting a brand that throws a bone to us, that really is about taking something back from our community, which is keeping us in the consumer mentality. Can you talk about how Actively Black is trying to shift out of that? Because you're building an ecosystem around Black owners beyond the Actively Black family.
1,000%. McKinsey released a report, I think it was last year, that showed that Black Americans spend $30 billion a year on apparel and shoes. So we know that the larger number of our collective buying power, but specifically on apparel and shoes, it's $30 billion a year, and they're projecting by 2030 that number is going to double. We don't have a single Black-owned apparel brand that's doing $1 billion. So if our people are spending $30 billion a year on apparel, and we don't have a single Black-owned apparel brand that is worth $1 billion, that's something wrong internally. That's something that we need to be facing and talking about ourselves.
Sure.
And so part of what we're doing Actively Black, we just launched 100% cotton line that all of the product is made from cotton grown by Black farmers. And I wanted to take this a step further with not just the end product, but a Black-owned supply chain, right? And so, I've got a couple of the pieces here, the hoodie, the back of it says, made from cotton, grown by Black farmers. You know what I mean? Like this, and so when you think about the history that our people have with cotton in this country, you have to understand that there were trillions of dollars in today's value that were generated off the backs of our labor for cotton during slavery, that we didn't get a chance to have any of the ownership of the value that we created. And so I look at this as, we ain't waiting on reparations. This is reclamation. You know what I mean? Like that's what this hoodie that's part of that collection, that's what it's symbolizing is, if we're spending $30 billion a year on apparel, we imagine what 1% shifting 1% of that spend to a Black-owned supply chain does. Black farmers have lost 90% of their land since 1920. We used to own between 18 to 20 million acres of land. We only own 3 million acres of land today. And with some of the anti-DEI policies that this current administration is implementing, Black farmers are under attack again, where in the next 10 years, that might go down to zero. That's a real possibility. And so what I'm saying is, hey, if we already spending this money with everybody else and generating wealth for everybody else, why not turn that inward, generate that for us? And to your point, then that dollar stays within the Black community, because now there's a Black farmer that's getting paid for his cotton and his labor and the fabric that we're making the product out of. And then we're turning around and we're donating to HBCUs. We are funding programs that pay for mental health access for Black men. We donate to Black Mamas Matter, where we are fighting the abysmal maternal mortality rate, where Black women are dying at 3 times the rate of anybody else in this country. You know what I mean? So when you're buying Actively Black, it's also going back to the Black community. When we're buying from everybody else, none of that money is coming back to us. And so that's what I'm trying to get our people to see and to understand.
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.